Tomorrow morning, millions of people will wake up and make breakfast. Some will pour a bowl of cereal. Some will toast a slice of bread. Some will slice an apple or pour a cup of coffee. It will seem like an ordinary start to an ordinary day. But hidden inside that breakfast is an invisible story. Most of us never see it. We simply call it a calorie. The word appears on food labels. It shows up on restaurant menus. Fitness watches, diet apps, and grocery stores all use it. But what is a calorie? Let's spend a day finding out. The morning begins with breakfast. Soon the dishes are washed, the front door closes, and the day gets underway. A gardener steps into the yard. A child races down the sidewalk on a bicycle. A baker kneads fresh bread. A carpenter lifts a hammer. A grandmother walks through the park with her granddaughter, stopping every few minutes to admire flowers blooming beside the path. Each person is doing something completely different, yet every one of them has something in common. Their day is being powered by energy they cannot see. For hundreds of years, people understood that food gave us strength, but no one knew how to measure that invisible energy. Then, in the 19th century, scientists began asking an interesting question. If a fire can warm a pot of water, could they measure the amount of heat being produced? Imagine placing a kettle over a fire. At first, nothing seems to change. Then, little by little, the water begins to warm. Something invisible is moving from the fire into the water. You can't see the energy itself, but you can see what it does. The water grows hotter. Soon steam begins to drift into the air. The question was no longer whether energy had moved. The question was, how much? To answer that question, scientists created a way to measure energy. They called that tiny unit a calorie. Years later, someone wondered if the same idea could be used to measure the energy stored inside food. The answer was yes. Different foods stored different amounts of energy. Some stored a little, some stored a great deal. Suddenly, the invisible could be measured. That simple idea eventually found its way onto every nutrition label we read today. But here's something that surprises many people. The calories printed on food packages aren't actually single calories, they're kilocalories. One food calorie is 1,000 scientific calories. The larger number was simply easier to print and easier to understand. By lunchtime, our gardener has planted flowers. The child has ridden home for lunch. The baker has filled the shop with warm loaves of bread. The grandmother and her granddaughter have finished their walk with smiles on their faces. Different people, different lives, different stories, all quietly supported by the same invisible energy. A calorie isn't good. A calorie isn't bad. It doesn't tell us whether a meal is healthy, delicious, or nourishing. It simply tells us how much energy is stored inside the food. The rest of the story comes from the food itself. An apple and a candy bar may contain similar calories, but they bring very different things to the table. That's why nutrition is about much more than a single number. As evening arrives, lights begin to glow in the windows of homes. Families gather around dinner tables. Neighbors wave to one another on evening walks. Someone reads a bedtime story. Someone else finishes watering the garden before heading inside. It has been an ordinary day, the kind of day we hardly think about. Yet every conversation, every step, every laugh, every chore, every adventure was quietly powered by energy that scientists learned to measure more than a century ago. Perhaps that's the most remarkable part. A calorie isn't something mysterious hiding inside your food. It's simply one of the ways we measure the invisible energy that helps make everyday life possible. The next time you glance at a nutrition label, you may still see a number, but perhaps you'll also see the story behind it. If you enjoyed discovering the hidden story behind one of the most familiar words in nutrition, we'd really appreciate it if you'd give this video a like. It helps more curious people discover our channel, and if you enjoy exploring the curious world around us, consider subscribing so you don't miss what's next. Now, we'd love to hear from you before watching this episode. Did you know what a calorie really was? Or did something in today's story surprise you? Until next time, thank you for exploring the curious world around us.